Hey everyone! Before we open today's file, please make sure to follow us on Instagram at d.s.radio, where you can find all the images that go along with today's case. You can drop us an email at contact.dsradio@gmail.com. You can find all of our socials in the Linktree bio on our Instagram profile, including links to merch. If you're feeling especially generous, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/dystopian simulation radio, where you can get access to our exclusive Instagram page and make suggestions for upcoming episode topics that you would like us to cover. Speaking of Patreon, thanks to our Patreons, Riff Cult, Cropley Crab, Cash Broadus, Raspberry Jr., Jason R. Nelson, Creepy Paper, Jamie Sook, Michael Laughlin, Lindsay Keller, Mike Wright, Greer Weaver, Kelsey Carruthers, Linz Gibbon, Drake Holvig, Only Child, Michael M, Wesley Akers, Riaz K, Emily Medeiros, Pip, Heather Wynn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, The Ordained Sinister Minister, and Philip Hoffman. Hi everyone, and welcome to Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your host, Linz.
And I'm your other host, Chris.
How's it going, Chris? What's new?
Pretty good. I have recently returned back from a round-the-world jaunt to Japan, and now I'm back in sunny England.
How was the Japanese simulation?
It was very, very hot.
Yeah. It looked very hot from your pictures. You were in the rural countryside.
So
didn't look like much covering.
No. So my wife is from the north of Japan, and normally it's pretty cool up there. You know, it's warm, but there's no humidity, and you know, it's the type of it's generally the place where other Japanese people from the south of the country might go to get a break from the sweltering heat down in Tokyo and so on. This year, not so much.
There is no break. Everyone's just got to sit and sweat to death. I'm currently sweating to death right now too, in sunny Sweden. So, yeah.
Yes, you had a bit of a move while I was away, didn't you? You took the opportunity and left me.
I didn't want to leave you, but to be honest, we're in the simulation, Chris.
We are plugged in,
so we'll always be together. What do you mean? I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still in the post-apocalyptic zombie basement with you. What are you talking about?
Of course. And how are you feeling? Your full disclosure, last week we wanted to record, but we couldn't because Linz's voice sounded like a cement mixer.
Yes, it can sound worse than usual. It's still a bit off, but I'll insert a voice note that I sent to Chris, and you can see how bad it actually was. Like, there was just complete words missing, and it just sounded like someone choking a cat. So, yeah. Sorry, everyone. I had to miss putting out the episode last week, but this one's going to be out on Monday. You're probably listening to it now. Oh, and also, before we move on here, I want to say a really happy birthday to Michael Septembrio. It's his birthday today. So, yeah, September 8th, of course, Michael 8. Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy birthday, Septembrio.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
What a crooner.
Maybe.
Didn't know you had it in you.
No. Well, apparently I do.
If the podcasting career doesn't go anywhere for you, you can always be like a modern-day Frank Sinatra. Not as corny as a Michael Bublé, but, you know, you'll find a good in-between spot.
I'd take Bublé money.
Well, yeah, I'd take Buble money. Probably wouldn't take the surname.
No.
Oh yeah, random side note. I had an AI generated Coke Zero yesterday.
A what? And
It was a Coke Zero that AI had designed the flavour of.
oh, and how was that?
I don't want to spoil it because I want other people. Well, I am going to spoil it, but I wanted other people to like weigh in. But I got like bubblegummy, some kind of. It wasn't great, to be honest. None of the co-creations tend to be great. But yeah, how weird! What a bizarre thing. That must be the first product of its kind, right?
I would guess so, but why are they giving AI the tools to make Coke?
I don't know. To be honest, they probably just went chat GPT and said like, choose a Coke flavor. And they were like bubblegum, and they were like, yeah, let's roll with that. It just sounds more impressive than it probably is.
But just before we get started, you heard it in the intro, so I'm not going to repeat it too much, but just make sure that you go to the link in our Instagram bio, where you can find all of the links to everywhere else. So that's our Patreon, our t-shirts, the book Linz has, our various social media platforms, and our OnlyFans page.
Chris,
I mean,
I don't think I posted anything there. What have you been doing?
Well, let's just say there's a market on OnlyFans for Bigfoot.
Oh my God. And also, early listeners might remember Chris's big meat.
Oh, how could they forget my big meat?
To be honest, I can't remember like what that reference specifically pertains to. I just remember the episode where we almost died laughing.
I think that should be a t-shirt.
Chris's big meat with an arrow.
Chris's big meat.
Just a one print, just only you can wear it.
Everybody should wear that. Now,
a sticker maybe.
Linz.
Yes, Chris.
Just before we get into the story you want to tell me today, I would like to tell you a very quick story, or rather read you an article that I came across today on my lunch break that I thought all of our listeners might enjoy.
Oh my God, yes.
So I'm just going to read this. This is from the Indy 100, which is from the Independent, the newspaper in the UK. Man who tried to cross ocean in human hamster wheel banned from sea. A man has been arrested in Florida after he tried to cross the Atlantic Ocean in a giant hamster wheel. Reza Baluchi, an Iranian athlete, got about 70 miles off the Georgia coast until he was spotted in the contraption by the US Coast Guard. He then proceeded to have a nearly 3-day standoff with the Coast Guard in which he refused to leave the hamster wheel, claiming he wanted to keep going to London. Eventually, authorities extracted him from the vessel, which was judged to be manifestly unsafe, and took him back to shore. Baluchi, 51, embarked on his bizarre voyage days before Hurricane Franklin hit parts of the Caribbean and US East Coast. When authorities caught up to him, he replied that he was armed with a 12-inch knife and he would attempt to commit suicide should the Coast Guard officers attempt to remove him.
Oh my
court
God.
documents said. Baluchi then threatened to blow himself up if he was removed from the hamster wheel. The Coast officers again ordered Baluchi off the vessel, but he again refused. It was then Baluchi informed the Coast Guard that the bomb was not real. Incredibly, this is not Baluchi's first run-in with the Coast Guard. His last voyage, in 2021, ended up in a similar way after he tried to reach New York from Florida in a human-powered hamster ball. His trip was curtailed when he realized that he'd forgotten his GPS and charging cables and was forced to return to the shore. As court documents state, Baluchi may not go in the ocean or board a vessel on the ocean of any kind as a result.
Oh, Baluchi.
So just think, everybody, you might be having a bad day, but you've never been banned from the sea.
To be honest, air tickets are quite expensive to London from Florida. And of course it's Florida. Where else would it be?
Well, of course.
Baluchi. It's quite close to Beluga as well.
He is.
Maybe there's a reason he feels so strongly about needing to be on the ocean. Is that actually a thing? Like, could he? I feel like that wouldn't be a thing. You like sweat to death in there and Probably get cooked and then dragged.
I don't think it was quite literally a hamster ball. It was from the pictures. It is like it's kind of like a hamster wheel that you can roll in, but it's made out of plastic, like inflatable plastic, and it's got air holes. I think I don't really understand. It's got like supports on the side.
I wouldn't like to take my chances in that, whatever it is.
Homemade, and I can only imagine the only person who would possibly want to be in that, apart from Mr. Beluga, is Richard Heaney.
I was just about to say it's giving Heaney vibes. If you don't know what we're talking about, go to the Balloon Boy episode. That's a good one. All right. Thank you for that great article, Chris.
You're very welcome.
I don't read the news, so I like exclusively getting my weird news from you.
I perform a service.
And you've not disappointed. Chris.
Yes.
We've covered a few famous haunted houses on this podcast, but we haven't yet covered a haunted house that is also an Airbnb with its own TripAdvisor reviews page.
No, we've not.
So my friend Nicola brought up this story in conversation recently, and I'd never heard of it. If you'd like to shop her gothic wares, you can do so on Instagram at haunted_casket_designs. So this story takes place in the small town of Pontefract in Yorkshire, and it's set in the late 1960s in a semi-detached council house at 30 East Drive on the Chequerfield estate. Ooh, council house.
For all of our US listeners, council houses are like they're government provided housing. They're not too common anymore, but there used to be thousands of them all around the UK.
So in 1966, this 3-bedroom property was home to the Pritchard family, the patriarch Joe Pritchard, his wife Jean Pritchard, their son Philip, who was 15 years old at the time, and his younger sister Diane, who was 12. The family owned a pet shop in town and led a pretty much regular life for an average family in West Riding. That is until one very strange day on September 1st, 1966, when their home and lives would change forever.
Oh.
On this day, Jean and Diane were on a domestic vacation in Devon.
I thought you just said Jean and Diane were having a domestic.
They were having a fist fight in the living room. No, Jean and Diane were on a domestic vacation in Devon, and Jean's mother, which is Diane's grandmother, Sarah, stayed at the family home, looking after the property, along with Philip, who had stayed behind. While Sarah was relaxing and knitting in the living room, her peace was interrupted by a cold, strong gust of wind that ripped through the home and disappeared with the slam of the back door. It probably gave her a shock, but it's easily explainable. It happens all the time, so she shook it off and soon forgot about it. A little while later, Sarah and Philip began to notice a thin fur of grey dust settled over the living room and everything in it. They described it as ash-like and said they could see it gently falling from around head height and settling over the room.
Okay.
How strange is that? Not from the ceiling of the room, from like head height.
Mm-hmm. And so multiple witnesses reported that.
Yep, that's Sarah, who is the grandma of the family, and Philip, who's the son, because they stayed behind. So as they were just chilling in different parts of the house, the grandma called up and said, like, Philip, what are you doing? Like, what is all this dust and shit? And he was like, I'm not doing anything. And then as they both stood...
Philip, what are you doing? What's all this dust and shit?
It's a great impression of how it probably went down. But yeah, he came down to inspect it. And as they were looking around, they noticed it was falling from basically their eye line to the surfaces and everything in the room. So,
How bizarre.
yeah, so the grandma clears it up and she's like, okay, that's weird, but, you know, there was a big gust of wind. Maybe it's just unsettled some dust or something. No idea. Kind of get over it and go back to doing what they were doing. So, after that, pools and puddles of water began appearing on the kitchen floor. So Sarah called her own daughter, who lived across the street. She called her in for backup, but the more puddles they mopped up, the more began to appear. Frustrated and bewildered, they peeled back the lino from the kitchen floor in an attempt to locate the source of water, but the floor beneath was completely dry. They turned off the water, but it still continued to appear. Eventually, they contacted the water board, who sent out a worker who could also not pinpoint the cause of the leak, but he just shrugged and put it down to condensation. The pools of water eventually disappeared.
Condensation.
Yeah, imagine you're mopping up literal pools of water and they keep reappearing on the lino, nothing underneath, nothing above. And he's like, it's condensation, like...
You wouldn't happen to be have a tropical rainforest in any of these cupboards, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose he was just like, I've got no clue what this is. I'm just going to say condensation. But it was as if somebody was just pouring like bowls of water onto the floor. And they were coming from seemingly nowhere, just materializing.
You know what that reminds me? What was that? The Battersea haunting thing.
Mm-hmm.
What was that other podcast one that followed on from it?
The witch house, the
Witch
one
House.
in Wales, was it?
That's it. So this reminds me of another podcast series that you should definitely listen to, but not as much as ours, called The Witch House, which is excellent. And that's a story set in Wales. And one of the key parts about that is the electricity going haywire in the house. And again, they call out a professional who has absolutely no explanation for where this consumption of electricity is coming from. So it's interesting that this is mirrored in this case, but with water.
Yeah, and there's more to come, and there is a lot of similarities, of course, but we'll get into that in a bit. So the pools of water eventually disappeared, and the ash stopped falling. The incident was eventually shrugged off by the family, and they got on with their day. Later that evening, however, the strange happenings returned. So Sarah and Philip were gathered in the living room in front of the TV when they heard a familiar sound coming from the empty kitchen. The tea dispenser was functioning on its own, releasing loose tea leaves from the machine into the sink below. This was just the beginning of what would be an evening of total chaos. Glasses and mugs began rattling inside the kitchen cupboards. The light in the house started flickering on and off. Plant was ripped from its pot and thrown upstairs. Loud jarring, thrashing and thumping could be heard on the upper floor and was described as sounding like someone hammering on a dustbin with a wooden stick. So Sarah calls her daughter back over for confirmation that what she and Philip were witnessing and hearing was actually happening. At first they blamed the family next door. If you remember, it's a semi-detached house, so there's a family on the other side of the wall. And this family was called the Mountains, apparently, which is a really weird surname.
Yeah.
But that's what I read in a book, the Mountain family.
Excuse me, Mr. Mountain. There's a ghost next door.
It sounds like an insult, doesn't it? But
definitely
yeah,
if you're Miss Mountain.
What a competition to win. The family next door got accused of making the racket and disturbing the house, but when confronted, that family said that they thought it was the Pritchards doing some at-home DIY, and both families were completely perplexed. So just like the pools of water and dust, the chaos came to an abrupt stop. Although unsettled by the happenings, Sarah and Philip decided that they would go to their separate beds for the night and continue as usual. But as Philip was settling down, his wardrobe, or closet for American listeners, which was pushed up into the corner of the room, began shifting from side to side as if being moved by an invisible force. It was described as moving side to side like a drunken man, and it was moving in the direction of the center of the room by itself. Mm-hmm. This is like very Beauty and the Beast. But yeah, like it's a big piece of furniture moving to the center of the room. I imagine closer to Philip in his bed, which is terrifying, because I guess the next step would be that it was thrown on him.
Or he gets locked inside it.
Oh my god, yeah, that's very Disney. Like locked in a cupboard and going to like a evil dystopian Narnia. Not that that wasn't dystopian enough, to be honest. So Sarah and Philip, in their pajamas, run across the street to Sarah's daughter's house, which she shared with her husband, Vic Kelly. While Sarah and Philip set up camp in the spare room, Vic, who was her daughter's husband, and very skeptical on top of that, heard the stories about what had been going on all day, and he put it down to the possible sinking of the ground under the Pritchards' home. And just to be safe, he called the police because he didn't really know what to do. So the police arrived and did a sweep of the home, but found no one that shouldn't have been there, nor witnessed any of the strange happenings that Sarah and Philip had reported. They soon left with nothing noteworthy to record, although I have heard the current next-door neighbour talking about like how the police came and they were scared of the house and they refused to come back, but I couldn't really find anything to back that up other than her saying it. So, in this situation, Chris, who are you going to call?
I'm going to call the Yorkshire Amateur Paranormal Society.
I hope you were going to say Ghostbusters.
The Ghostbusters. Oh no, that was all.
The Ghostbusters.
That was...
That was pretty good.
What was it?
Was it terrible? You do it.
No, yours was... I don't know, mine was... The Ghostbusters. No.
That was like Ringo Starr.
I'm always doing Ringo Starr. All of my impressions, even my Obi-Wan Kenobi impression is just Ringo Starr.
It is. Okay,
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy.
All right. I hoped you were going to say Ghostbusters and that busting made you feel good. However...
Well, it does, but this is a family show.
However, in the case of Vic and Marie Kelly, who stayed up all night talking about hauntings, it was their friend down the road, Mr. O'Donnell, the self-proclaimed ghost hunter. So you were kind of right.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Mr. O'Donnell. So at the stroke of midnight, O'Donnell responded to the bat signal put out by the Kellys, and he ran up the road to Pritchard's property. O'Donnell was straight with them, and he said that he felt they were dealing with a poltergeist. He listed off all the tropes, like objects being smashed, tapping, banging, etc., and gave the Kellys his diagnosis. He stayed for around 90 minutes, and as he was being shown to the door, there was a loud crash from the living room. On inspection, a number of framed pictures were found smashed on the ground, among them Joe and Jean's wedding photo, which had been ripped in half. Mm-hmm.
So this was a lovelorn ghost.
Or just a dick.
one that had, I don't know the word, machinations on...
Is that a word?
Mrs. I am making it a word. I believe it is a word.
Okay.
It's some kind of word, if I'm using it correctly or not. I don't know.
Who cares? You're like a modern day Shakespeare.
That he was a horny ghost.
Yeah, okay, that's more Chris. We'll go with that. So Sarah and Philip, so that's the grandma and the son, knew that they had to return to the Pritchards' home at some point. So after staying at the Kellys' home for a few hours the next day, they returned. All was calm and remained so until the Pritchards returned from their holiday in Devon that weekend. So if you recall, the mum, the daughter, and the dad, I guess, were in Devon, and they returned that weekend. With the Pritchard family gathered together in the living room, Sarah began to tell them of the strange and frightening happenings that had befell her and her grandson when suddenly an icy wind blew through the whole house and the thumping began upstairs.
Oh, by gum, that's cold.
By gum. Have you been thinking of that for your impression for the last 5 minutes? By gum. I can't do the accent. Why can't we do it? All we can say is, go and to shop.
Go to shop and eat by gum. When I were a ghost, oh.
How do you think the ghosts go? Ooh. All right. So an icy wind blew through the whole house, and the thumping began upstairs. It soon stopped, but cemented to the Pritchards that what she and Philip had experienced that week was true. Nothing would be experienced again for another 2 years, but it seemed the supposed poltergeist was not gone, but simply dormant and waiting. So Chris, what do you think about the first part of this haunting story so far?
I mean, it's got a lot of the tropes of poltergeists. You know, we've got things moving around. There's some hammering on the wall. There is, puddles of water, which isn't necessarily a trope, but there definitely seems to be things appearing, disappearing, And these seem to be building up and up and up into more violent outbursts. Now, nobody's been hurt yet, but that's ultimately where poltergeist encounters tend to be going towards.
Yep, totally agree with you. We've seen this before, and we didn't need Mr. O'Donnell, the amateur ghost hunter from down the road, to diagnose this house with a poltergeist. So, Chris, the happenings returned on August 26, 1968. While Jean and Diane were drinking tea in the living room, they heard a strange noise from upstairs. When Jean went to investigate, she found Diane's bed quilt had been thrown from the upstairs down and lay in a crumpled heap. Not long after, Philip's bed quilt was found in much the same way. I like to think that the ghost tried to put on the sheet, like a classic ghost, but then tripped on his way down.
Right? I might be putting two and two together and making Yorkshire here, but there's a lot of mentions of tea.
Yeah.
Is this a tea-related ghost? Like,
well,
I know Yorkshire people like Yorkshire tea. Were these people? Did they fill up that tea dispenser with PG tips?
yeah, maybe they should have just offered him a cup.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what he wanted all along.
Like Santa Claus, you leave out a cup of tea for the poltergeist.
Yeah.
And they don't throw your sheets off your bed.
Exactly. I think we're onto something with this. Maybe it's like like those sprites and things where you have to leave them milk and they clean your house or whatever they do. This could be like the Yorkshire version of it. I think we're onto something.
That's a sweet deal.
Yeah.
Like I mean, yeah, milk's going up, cost of living, all that, but still, I'd leave some milk out for a Sprite.
You could milk yourself.
I can milk myself. Can you milk me, Greg?
You could milk you just Chris leaning over a small bowl in the night, milking himself.
Don't put that image in people's heads. But if you do want that image in your head, go over to our OnlyFans.
So, Chris, the family started referring to this invisible entity as... Would you like to have a guess, actually, before I tell you?
Oh, yeah. They always give them bizarrely normal names, like in that, the Battersea one, it was Donald, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So let's go with a 1960s name. Kevin.
Close but no cigar. Fred.
Ah!
I think you could have got that, you know. I was
think
thinking you might have.
Oh.
Yep, the media called him Mr. Nobody, but the family called him Fred, because Mr. Nobody is frankly terrifying. The poltergeist attacks went full throttle in Diane's room, which her mother was redecorating at the time. Paintbrushes and decorating equipment was being hurled across the room, slammed into walls, and even thrown into the garden from the bedroom window. Even after they closed the door to the room, they could hear the objects smashing around from the other side. Diane, who was now 14 years old at this point, became the main target of the activity. This is a theme that we know well, Chris, in the realm of poltergeist cases.
Yes.
In the past, we've covered the stories of Eleonora Zungen, and more recently, like you said, the Battersea haunting, where both young daughters in the stories were the target of this poltergeist activity. So it's pretty classic as far as this poltergeist case is going, right?
Again, this is another trope, you know, that the young girl or the girl who's just coming into puberty. It's often associated with poltergeist action for whatever reason. This is a trope in a lot of horror movies that you'll see. There's a connection between young girls becoming women and poltergeist activity. But that it does seem to be a recurring theme in I won't say actual cases of poltergeists, but I will say actual reports of poltergeists as well.
Yeah. Now, the amount of reported activity in this case is kind of insane. So I'm going to have you read this little list that I've put together just to give the listeners an idea of what kind of things went down at 30 Easter Drive.
That's okay. I'm good at reading lists. Top of my class. Okay, so here is the list. Lights flickering on and off that passers-by claim to witness at night. Knocking so loud that it could be heard a few houses away. In response to one of Joe Pritchard's sisters claiming the poltergeist was not real, a full jug of milk floated out of the fridge and was poured over her head, much to Philip and Diane's delight. The same sister's gloves floated up and began conducting her rendition of Onward Christian Soldiers, which she had started singing in an attempt to cast out the evil energy. Diane had her blankets ripped off during the night and her mattress flipped while she was still on it, throwing her to the floor. Items thrown and moved around the home. Green foam started coming from the taps. Photos being ripped, slashed, and generally destroyed. People being slapped. Keys falling down the chimney, among them a large medieval door key. Diane was pinned to the floor with furniture. Huge footprints materialized on a hallway carpet. A large clock being hurled down the stairs from the upper floor. A heavy crucifix statue flying off the shelf and attaching itself to Diane's back. And finally, paranormal events witnessed by a priest who was unable to get permission for an exorcism and suggested the family move.
A lot to unpack there, Chris.
Yeah, just go, I mean, I'll run through that very briefly. Lights flickering off and on, standard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Knocking so loud it could be heard a few houses away. Again, this is another common trope of things. This does seem to have a bit of a sense of humour, though.
Yes.
In so much as floating a jug of milk from the fridge and pouring it over a sister of Joe's, and then using her gloves to conduct a rendition of Onward Christian Soldiers.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, but then it gets more serious again with Diane having blankets ripped off and flipped while she was on the mattress, so pinned to the floor.
Yeah.
Items thrown, moved around, standard. Green foam coming from the taps.
Never heard that one before. Very Ghostbusters. Before Ghostbusters.
Photos being destroyed. Yeah.
Classic.
People being slapped. Well, this is now getting literally violent. People are getting hurt. Now, this is one that's interesting. Keys falling down the chimney.
Yes.
Again, in the last case that we talked about, there was a key, but it seemed to be a bit of a MacGuffin. It disappeared and went nowhere, but there was a key.
Yep.
Diane being pinned to the floor with furniture, footprints on the carpet, clocks. There's more things flying around, including a heavy crucifix, and then a priest who was unable to get permission for an exorcism from the family.
No, from the
deacon.
Couldn't get permission from somebody like a clergyman, like one of the higher positions. That word will come to me later. But yeah, anyway, he couldn't get the permission to do it because apparently, I don't know why though. I mean, this seems like the sort of case where you would get permission to do an exorcism, but yeah, no exorcism for him. So how are you feeling so far about this file, Chris? Are you feeling convinced? Are you feeling skeptical? Is there not enough there for you yet?
I mean, I think the thing that adds credibility to it, I mean, obviously we always have to take a skeptical approach when we look at these things, but the multiple witnesses thing, I mean, you've got 3 people there and a jug of milk floating out and being poured over someone's head. That is who's sitting there saying this is not real. So therefore, she's not in on this. A lot of the times, we've looked into things when we did, Geth the Talking Mongoose. There was a lot of accusations about the young daughter in that. The people that you ultimately turn to are the people who live in the house. Somebody's doing these things. Now, interestingly, a lot of these people were absent the very first time the ghost poltergeist materialized or kind of showed itself to be in the house. Don't know what that says exactly. But it does lend a little bit of credibility to what's been going on, I suppose, when we're exploring this crazy dystopian case that we're looking into. But I think it follows a lot of the tropes of standard poltergeists encounters. But there's something very sinister about all of this.
Oh yeah, and it's gonna get worse. But Chris, so far, it's kind of just people saying things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some neighbours claim to have heard banging and stuff, but, you could stand in your house and bang on the upper floors or the walls and, say, I didn't do that. And
I mean, that's what my neighbours do.
They used to. Well, Chris, I feel like you're not quite convinced yet, so I have some evidence here. Genuine images of the activity witnessed in this house.
Okay.
I believe this will blow your tiny mind wide open. So,
Tiny?
these are...
I've got a big head.
Yeah, but you know, the contents of...
The contents of my head.
that smooth little... I'm going to blow that smooth little cashew wide open. Okay. So, Chris, these are pictures. These are modern pictures. As I told you at the start of the episode, this house is actually kind of like an Airbnb. Well, it's a B&B. You can stay there. It's got reviews on TripAdvisor. So it does have its own website. And the website only posts pictures that they say are absolutely genuine and haven't been faked. So the first piece of evidence I want to show you, brace yourself, because
I'm braced.
it can be...
I'm in the braced position. My head is between my legs. I'm ready.
Great. Too much information, but great. Right, here we go. So, this is the jug that filled itself. Take a load of this and tell me you're not convinced. This is two pictures. So we have the jug that filled itself. Here they come. If you could just describe these to the listeners, and of course react. Evidence.
Oh, those are some big jugs.
Thank you.
So this is a picture of a jug that is on the floor. The carpet is
It's beautiful.
horrible. Linz, I don't know what I'm looking at. Is there anything in this?
I think it's
cup?
supposed to be water. I think it's a little milk jug. It's white with a blue pattern.
It's got some blue grapes on it.
I think it's meant to be filled with water. So that's the jug filled with water. And I believe that's a zoomed in picture of the jug also filled with water.
Oh, I thought one was a before and after.
Oh no, that's just a jug of water.
Right.
Chris, first piece of evidence. Come on.
I mean, apart from the fact that it's on the floor, it's genuinely quite helpful. Thanks for filling the jug with water. I was going to do that. Save me a job.
Rate this evidence, Chris.
I'm going to rate this evidence -5 stars.
It is just a jug filled with water, everyone. We'll post these on the Instagram, by the way, and the Patreon.
I'm actually raising questions of if it's filled with water.
Yes, like it might not be filled with water, but I think it's filled right up to the top there. You can see the lip is a little bit exposed, and then who knows? There might not even be water in that. You're not convinced. I feel you. So
I'm a tough cookie.
I can sense that you're skeptical. So how about this next piece of evidence, Chris? The moving Bible. You ready?
Hit me with it.
The Bible.
That's what my Sunday school teacher used to do.
Yeah, that's what actually happened to me in Catholic school. Like I told you, both testaments. All right, here we go, Chris. The moving Bible. If you could just react to this, and I expect you to gasp, and describe it to the listeners, please. Bam.
Okay. So, this is two pictures in one image, if that makes sense. A left and a right, before and after. In the first image, there is a Holy Bible, which is on the left-hand side of the counter. And in the second image, it is in the upper right-hand corner of the counter. Yeah.
What that was quite a stale reaction, Chris. You're not
just
convinced?
I mean,
Are you not seeing what I'm seeing?
a static
It's
image
moved slightly.
called the Moving Bible. I mean, I'm thinking we're going to have to dig into the metadata of this and find out a bit more about it. It's
In all fairness, I called it the moving Bible.
I need more evidence.
Okay.
But
Fine.
what I will point out is that there is a chamber pot hanging on the wall.
Yes, I was so taken aback by the moving Bible that I didn't notice anything else in the picture.
What a lovely decorative item. Something that people used to piss and shit in.
Well, it's so scary that you don't want to poop your pants, so they just, it's a good feature to the B&B. All right. May I present to you evidence? And this one is the world's first moving pink orb. Ooh.
Well, we're approaching something. I think we might have to have a conversation about the definition of the word evidence. But what we have here is 3 images pasted next to each other of a lady holding a cup that says mood.
Mood.
And an oversized red scarf, the type your mother will definitely get for Christmas. And in the first image, there's a pink orb, a blurry pink orb on the left-hand side. In the middle one, it's now in the center of the image. And the last one, it's on the far right of the image, which showing that, yes, this is definitely moving, this orb.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people will associate orbs with ghost activity. That's a fairly common thing. The other thing is that a lot of orbs are just dust.
How dare you?
So I'm not saying that orbs don't sometimes mean paranormal activity, but I'm also saying that perhaps this Airbnb should be dusted a little bit more.
Okay. I see that witness statements and extremely convincing pictures of paranormal activity are not enough for you, Chris.
No.
Let's continue with the story, and then we'll get into some more evidence. Okay. So, this is where it gets crazy. That was my stuff they don't want you to know impression. In 1969, the poltergeist materialized before the family in the form of a black silhouette clad in robes. The Pritchards described the figure as looking like a monk. Pontefract haunting is often referred to as the Black Monk of Pontefract case for this reason. Not only did the Black Monk appear to the Pritchards, but also to the neighbour on the other side of the wall of their semi-detached house. The next-door neighbour had an encounter with the Black Monk in her kitchen while she was doing the dishes.
This is sounding like the setup to a Mills and Boon novel.
I knew you were going to say that. She felt a presence standing behind her, and when she turned around, she was met with a looming monk in dark robes with his face obscured. He stood for a few seconds before disappearing before her eyes. The Black Monk would appear both outside and inside the home on multiple occasions. He was once seen standing outside the home in front of the door as if waiting to be let in. He once touched a guest on the back of the head after turning the lights out, and he was even seen floating down through the kitchen floor and disappearing.
Sounds like general ghost business.
Yes. Shall we take a look at some images of the Black Monk then, Chris?
Yes.
You ready?
Oh, yes. I'm so ready.
I told you there'd be evidence, and there is evidence. So I'm going to keep the best for last. We have 2 pictures here.
Wait, you mean the milk joke wasn't the best?
No! We got monk here. 100% genuine monk. Okay? I'm going to leave the best to last. But we'll start off a bit easy. So, this is the monk, the roux, some French doors. All right, get a load of that, Chris. React, describe. Just to clarify, the man in the blue t-shirt is not the monk. That's just a man.
He looked like he could be called Fred. Right. So there's a gentleman in a blue shirt who's sitting on a chair in the foreground. And just behind him, there is a set of doors with windows in it. But these windows are obscured by a lace curtain. And on the left-hand side of a lace curtain, there is something. It could very well be a ghostly monk called Fred. It could also be a Christmas tree.
And other people have said that it looks like a man reading.
Yeah, I know. I can see that. I can see that it looks like somebody holding a book as well. Now, I do have a question for you, Linz. Why also in this picture is there a close-up of a leather chair?
I don't know, Chris. You know as much as I do.
It's presented in the same way as an overlay.
Yeah.
Like, this is evidence.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to see something there, but I genuinely can't even pareidolia see something. It's just a chair.
No.
All right. I realised that wasn't the best piece of evidence, so let's go to the next photo that I have here. Now, this is a bit scary. Just a little heads up. And this is on the staircase to the house. Bam. Ooh.
Oh,
This is good.
Okay. Now we are
Right?
talking. So, folks, this is a genuine piece of evidence.
Okay.
As in, it looks. This is fake. So, this is, if real, the ghost of Homer Simpson from the outline. Basically, what this looks like is someone has opened up a freeware version of Photoshop and has taken the smudge tool and the burn tool and had a grand old time with themselves right here. This doesn't even... This is just a smudge on a photo. Yeah.
Na 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 ghost wang.
It does
All right.
look bizarrely like the profile of Homer Simpson.
Homer Simpson.
Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson.
All right, Chris, I told you that I was keeping the best for last, all right?
Yes.
So, let's take a look at the best, in my opinion, the best picture of maybe the Black Monk.
Called Fred.
Enlarge that, take a look, react, describe, Chris. Evidence. Evidence, baby.
Okay. Now, this is definitely a creepy picture. This is...
Right?
Was this taken at the time or by one of the guests of the Airbnb? Do we know?
One of the guests of the Airbnb.
Okay. So, this is from inside of a room, looking out into the corridor. The lights are on in the corridor, and the door is open to the room. It's a very blurry picture, but you can see what definitely appears to be a blurry human image that is quite opaque on the outside and strongly black at its center. I mean, this is much better than the previous one. It could equally be the same thing.
Yeah.
But I think due to the quality of this picture, which is admittedly not great, it looks a bit better than the previous one because the previous picture's in broad daylight, and it looks very fake. So this one, yeah, fair enough. It's sort of a side profile. You can definitely see a head, a torso, and some very long, slender legs on it.
Yeah, not very robed.
No.
He looks sort of naked. He's given a Abe from Abe's Odyssey.
Yes, he's not too far away from Abe's Odyssey on that. I mean, this is an interesting photo. It's definitely creepy. I mean, if you imagine you stayed in an Airbnb overnight with your partner and they snapped this in the night and showed you in the morning, you'd shit yourself.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So, based on the body of evidence that's been presented so far, this is definitely the best.
Yeah, I agree. I do like that picture. I was laughing and joking about the jug and everything, but I do like that picture. Pretty creepy. So, Chris, the most terrifying event, according to the family, was when Diane was dragged up the stairs by her throat by an invisible force. This struggle left behind red marks on the girl's neck, and it took both her parents and brother to wrestle her back from the entity's grip. Her mother still refused to move, though, which is bizarre. I believe I read that Joe, the husband, even found someone willing to do a house swap, but Jean just did not want to budge, which I don't understand.
Your daughter's being dragged up the stairs by her throat by a ghostly apparition. Your jugs are both being poured over your relatives and being filled up with water. You've got loud noises. Cupboards are attacking people. You've had crosses that have pinned your daughter to the ground. You have had mattresses flipped. You've had your photographs torn in half. But I just don't want to move. I love the kitchen. I love the kitchen too much. No,
It had views,
it's
man. It had views.
it's got built-in units, and I just don't think we're going to get that anywhere else for this price.
No. So, despite how popular this case is in the paranormal sphere, there wasn't too much about it in the newspaper archives circa late 60s, at least when I searched. However, in the 70s, this case really started to gain some more traction. The 70s, it spawned films like The Exorcist, the Amityville Horror, Burnt Offerings, etc. So people were really into these alleged real-life paranormal stories. A historian named Tom Cunniff believed that the Pontefract haunting was the British version of the Amityville Horror and that it could be a story of its own. So he dug into the possible origins of this black monk character, and according to him, his research revealed that a monk had been sentenced to death and killed in the 16th century for the rape and murder of a girl. He said that the site of the execution was the very ground on which the Pritchards' home was built. There's also a story that the black monk used to throw the bodies of his little girl victims in a well, and that 30 East Drive is right on top of it. And after his execution, he was allegedly thrown down there too. So very Stephen King.
Yeah, this is very Pet Cemetery. It was built on a Native American burial ground. Yeah, it's got all the tropes of it.
It has, yeah. I don't know, like, this historian kind of like was the one to unearth this, but I couldn't really see any of the records. So I don't know if this is just like I'm sure things like this did happen everywhere. And if you search the archives and the records long enough, you'll find some horrific crime, that took place on or around the land that you're trying to research. But yeah, this is what he found when he looked it up, apparently. And writer Colin Wilson wrote about the case in the 80s in a book that he wrote about poltergeists, and that's when the Black Monk of Pontefract became a bit more well known. So the current owner of the home, Chris, Bill Bungie, said as he was standing in the kitchen, a domino materialized out of thin air, and he wrote a book about the case called The Black Monk of Pontefract, the world's most violent and relentless poltergeist. So if you could read in Bill's own words, the reason for him purchasing this infamously haunted property in the first place, Chris.
Certainly. I'm fucking mental.
In a nutshell.
Do you know what kind of voice he has?
Just do like a southern British one, I believe.
Was it Ringo Starr? I can do Ringo Starr.
Please tell me it was Ringo Starr.
What possessed me, forgive the pun, to buy the most infamous haunted house in Europe? Simply because I had recently made a movie about a house called When the Lights Went Out, with director and good friend of mine, a native of Pontefract, Pat Holden. After completing the movie, I was looking for original ways of promoting When the Lights Went Out, when I discovered the actual house where all these incredible events allegedly happened was for sale, and it was, cheap. So I bought it, and this resulted in the coolest red carpet movie premiere ever, where two competition winners walked the tiny red carpet down the garden path into number 30 East Drive to watch the movie about that actual house.
Okay.
He's quite eccentric, that fellow, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you could have just rented it.
Depends how cheap it was.
The movie came out, I believe, 2012. So probably cheaper than what you'd get now, but it couldn't be that cheap. Surely. But at £80 a head to stay there, it must be quite the moneymaker, factoring in that there's usually groups both up and downstairs at night, apparently. Now that's profit, Chris. So he's probably made that money back.
That's a smart investment.
Right? £80 a head.
80?
And he has groups in there.
Christ. We've got to get a haunted house.
I know. We should, I think I've got something resembling a Hexam head around here. We could put it in your house.
Yay.
Yeah, but then you could sell it to some ghost fanatic for like triple the price.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Let's go for it.
To be honest, it does sound fun though, like to go there, and I'd so love to go with you.
Let's make it happen next time you're in the country.
We should, you know. It's only Yorkshire. It's not that far away from
No.
where we usually live, so yeah, maybe. But yeah, Chris, that's the case. And going off the evidence presented in this evening's file, what's your opinion? Yay? True? No? Hoax?
I mean, all of this evidence that's been presented in terms of the physical evidence of photographs doesn't really convince me. It is all of these things that have happened sound terrifying. And if you were there and witnessed them, I'm sure this would convince you. However, not a lot has been said about these events. I mean, she's dragged, the daughter is dragged up the stairs by her throat. And then, what happened? She's pinned to the floor by a mattress. And then, a crucifix attaches itself to her back. And then?
Well, it's just a series of weird shit, isn't it? I mean, it's not usual that poltergeist cases that we've researched have this ongoing narrative. They just do weird shit and go boo and scare you. They just
yeah, but I feel like this is a case that if you believe it, it's terrifying. But if you are somebody who needs a little bit of a thimbleful of evidence, it's not going to convince you. I think this is a less credible case than the Battersea haunting. However, I will also say that it hasn't had a BBC Sounds podcast made about it, which may influence my understanding with lots of dramatic retellings and sort of television grade or radio grade teleplays about it. So I'll admit that part. It does share a lot of the same things in common. Yeah. But there seems to be less of a narrative running through it from the evidence that's been given. I mean, it seems to be centering around the daughter, but it just seems like a bunch of weird shit's happening, to be honest. And how much press did they get at the time?
I'm not exactly sure, because to be honest with you, we don't live so far from Yorkshire, and I'd not really heard of this until my friend brought it up, because someone she followed online had gone to stay in that haunted house overnight. There is how about, just to wrap this up, you skim through some of the reviews on TripAdvisor and see what people who stayed there thought about it.
Okay, sure. It's got 27 reviews with an average of 4 out of 5.
Which is pretty good.
The first one says, "It's all staged. Come on, people. It's for entertainment purposes, and it's all staged. There's nothing haunting the house. The woman next door, the hotel, not far. It's all linked. It's a house staged to look and feel scary. You're wasting your time and your money. You're just making the filmmaker who owns it rich, and it's all totally staged."
Yeah, Ella M did not like her stay.
Suzanne B says it was a very well-organised visit with a well-known ghost hunting company. The fact the house looks like a regular house on a built-up estate made it even more sinister.
Do you agree with that? I think I'd be more creeped out by a haunted mansion.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I want cobwebs. I want, creaking doors. But anyway, she said, "We did have some activity on the landing whilst we were in the hall. There was a cold draft and a smell of burning in the parents' bedroom. I believe others have had more / less activity on other visits. So if you're interested in the paranormal, it is definitely worth a visit. It is not suitable for children or people who have nervous disposition. I would definitely go again."
Could you scroll down to Jenny S, Chris, who's given 1 star?
I will do, but I'd just like to just say that I've stumbled upon the photographs. And there is, a lot of it just looks like a Rightmove listing for a house that would need a serious amount of work done to modernise it. It appears that if you want to sleep there, you sleep on some kind of cots in the main room. there is a very creepy doll. And there's also a
Yes.
W.H. Smith bag in the corner.
Yeah, they've really hit up the second-hand stores, the thrift stores.
There's definitely some weird dolls in my house. I just think dolls are weird anyway. They do some of the... Oh, hold on. Hold on.
Oh.
Wait a minute. Enhance.
Computer enhance.
Enhance.
Did you find more evidence?
Oh, yes, they do.
Is it the Beatles poster?
No. They have a copy of The French Connection 2 on VHS. Wow, that took...
And here I was thinking you'd found Ringo.
So
I think there is. I think Ringo is in there. You know.
I'm
I'm sure there's a Beatles poster.
He's always there. Right. Who am I looking for? Jenny.
Scroll down to Jenny S. Yeah.
Okay. Sick to death of visitors parking outside my house and blocking me in parking in the disabled spots. I have no parking signs like you at 30 East Drive, but your visitors are still park on this side. Absolute joke.
Great review, Jenny S. Then we have people that, you know, we got 5 stars and we got 1 stars. We got people who can't wait to go back. We got people who say absolutely rubbish. So I think it depends, you know. If you want to believe this story and you go there, you're probably going to have a great time if you believe in it because, I mean, you know, houses expand and contract from day to night. You're probably going to hear some taps and creaks and be scared, and it might be good in a group. But if you're like seriously looking for some paranormal experience, I don't know. There's a few YouTubers who saw things and didn't see things.
I mean, I think you're right. You could probably put any house around. You could market it as ghost activity, and people would probably convince themselves that something was happening because the boiler switched off in the middle of the night, or they say houses expand, contract. It certainly does seem like this guy's making some money off it, though. I mean, £80 a head.
Oh, hell yeah. That's a lot, and it's always booked.
But I'll tell you what. I will tell you what. That's cheaper than a hotel for a night.
Depends.
I mean, maybe in Pontefract.
But we'll let Leona have the last word here, Chris, if you could read the kind of like general response that he gives when, you know, being confronted with bad reviews.
I am not inclined to respond to reviews, as we are all entitled to our opinion. However, it is both frustrating and disappointing that some of the folk that visit 30 East Drive are naive enough to believe that they are visiting a Disney exhibit. Were that the case, I suspect that you would have come away happy at the fakery that you made to believe that there were ghosts in the house, right? It is precisely because nothing in the house is faked. On the occasion of your visit, nothing happened. Without judging by your review, my suspicion is that things probably did, as a vast majority of visitors enjoy experiences there. But none of you were aware enough to notice that the fact that you have failed to understand that spirits are not performing monkeys shows how poorly researched your comment actually is. It is sad that you didn't experience anything when you visited, but I'm afraid it is the luck of the draw, as clearly specified in our T's and C's. For those wanting the truth about the house, as opposed to this wildly incorrect review, read The Black Monk of Pontefract on Amazon.
And there you have it, Chris. The final word on this case from the owner. What do you think?
I mean, it's clearly been turned into a marketing ploy now, but I mean, as I said, I'm skeptical about this case. I think I'm more likely to believe in Nessie than in this case, to be honest.
What do you mean? Like you ever doubted Nessie was real?
Well, no, hey, there's been a bizarre amount of Nessie stories popping up recently with more and more evidence, but I'm sure you'll get onto that on part 2 of Nessie, whenever that comes.
Yes, I have posted a couple of those videos on the Patreon as well.
Yes. So the thing that I would like to know, whether you can answer this or not, I don't know, but what about the family? What
they have seemingly they have never come out to interview about this. Like, that's what I was thinking too. Where's interviews with Diane, all of them, but no, they don't seem to have come out and done any interviews, which is, there's one picture of Jean holding the book that was written, but that's it. So obviously they were interviewed for the books and stuff, which is where I got some of this information from. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be any TV or radio interviews with them, any video interviews. There may have been, but I didn't find them, and others haven't seemed to find them either. So I know, like, unlike the Battersea case where they did lots of interviews and even came out to interview again after the fact. But yeah, here there doesn't seem to be as much.
No, I mean, I guess they just want to distance themselves from it as much as possible. But I definitely...
And they've sold the house.
Yeah, it's interesting that the spirit supposedly didn't follow them, because that's what happened in the Battersea case, right?
Yes, exactly. And some people who have stayed there have said that they've taken things and the presence has followed them back to their home and all this stuff. So that's another trope of a haunted house, of course. But people have said they felt watched after staying there and returning home. So who knows where the Black Monk could be now. Apparently he does run around the street, runs past people's windows like Naruto style. Probably not Naruto style, but he runs past their windows and freaks people out, apparently.
Well, if you are looking for property on that estate, just be aware about that.
Yeah.
Somebody Naruto running around the estate.
And yeah, if you've stayed there, like if any listeners have stayed there, or you have an experience with it, please let us know. We'd love to have you on if you had an experience and you stayed there overnight. That would be great.
Have you had a romantic relationship with an alien?
Stop it. Yeah, we have had people who've had romantic relationships with aliens contact us. We'll not say anything else, but it happens, Chris. It happens.
It does happen. It happens more than you might think. And there's artwork of it. Very explicit artwork of it.
Yes, there is. Upcoming Christmas gift for you, I think.
Oh, no. I think my wife would kill me.
Probably.
Thank you very much for telling me this story. I'm unconvinced, but you know what?
Me too.
It's just as everything we present on this show, we want to believe.
Yes.
So there hasn't been any evidence that's come forth that has convinced us of this, but you never know what's around the corner, and somebody staying there overnight might just snap that picture that doesn't just look like a Christmas tree, and we think, you know what? Yeah, that's definitely a ghost.
Yeah, for now we remain unconvinced, but you know the case is always open.
It's open, but anyway, now that we are back from our jollies and from holidays and everything else, we are going to be going full force again with Dystopian Simulation Radio. And we're going to be back again in a couple of weeks' time with a script that I have not yet written. So I'm going to go get on that.
Yeah, find something good, something we've never heard of, Chris. Present a nice, juicy file on your return.
I've got something in mind, and after that self-indulgent sojourn into pro wrestling, don't worry, it's not pro wrestling. I'll give it a few weeks before I go in.
But everyone loves your pro wrestling cases. We did get requests for them, so now and again you'll get a wrestling case.
Every so often, but few and far between. Right, well, thank you very much, Linz, for telling me that story today about the Pontefract ghost, the Black Monk, Fred.
You're welcome.
And I'm looking forward to speaking to you again on the next episode. That will be following in 2 weeks' time. We've got Halloween coming up on the horizon as well. And we've got some things up our ghostly, sort of creepy long sleeves for you on that.
What are you wearing?
You know the ones I mean.
I've just got a Cramps t-shirt.
And we will be, ramping things up for that. So make sure you check into the next one. If you enjoy the podcast, and we certainly hope that you do, please share it around. We need as many listeners as we could get to get out there. And also, as well, feel free to join our Patreon.
Yeah, thank you for everyone who's already subbed to us on Patreon. It really helps us with the hosting and everything. And we know it's just an early support thing, but we really appreciate you all. And yeah, thanks.
So until next time, if you have a ghost who fills your jugs, let us know.
And if you want to see Chris milking himself, just subscribe to our OnlyFans. Sorry, Mom.
Oh, see you next time.
Bye. Oh my God.